January. There's something special about January. New month, new year, New Year's resolutions, ins and outs. Martin Luther King Day, January 6th, National Dress Your Pet Up Day, but the best tradition of them all, Trashuary, or as some call it, Dumpuary. Maybe in another video we can get into the etymology of Dumpuary, but historically speaking, January is a month filled with either A, scarce amount of releases, or B, of those releases, they're frankly not very good. Movies with a low chance at box office success or critical praise, and then are dumped into January, hence the name Dumpuary. Clever, I know. To jog your memory, January of 2024, last year, or if you haven't processed it 2025 yet, this year, looked something like this. There was the hit Blumhouse movie Night Swim, ISS, Miller's Girl, Lift, the Netflix movie with Kevin Hart, The Beekeeper, which I really liked, and the highest grossing movie of that month was the Mean Girls musical, grossing something like $72 million. Some decent movies here, but not 24's best and brightest. The one silver lining is that January is usually the month we see an expansion of the limited release titles from December. So finally, the A24 movie will play in Ohio instead of just New York and LA. Hopefully. But there was a glimmer of hope that this January 2025, things could be different. That was until David Zaslav and company decided to snatch that hope away from us. Kind of like that old insurance commercial with the fisherman and the dollar.
I got you $1. Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
Might be a dated reference, but you get the idea. But with all that being said, I do think this January is offering a better selection than in recent memory. So here's a full calendar of what to watch out for, and at the end, we'll rank the 5 most exciting ones. Theatrically speaking, January 3rd is a fairly barren day. That's because most of the big movies released back on Christmas. But there is one movie worth mentioning, and that is the IMAX re-release of David Fincher's Seven. I've had my ticket booked for this movie for like the last 3 weeks, which effectively means I've only had 2 spots on my AMC A-list to book movies for like 3 weeks, which I guess is a different gripe for a different video, AMC. Regardless, what is there for me to say about Seven? It's a classic. If you've never seen it, take the chance now and go watch it in IMAX. If you choose to stay home, that's okay, because the newest Wallace Gromit A Vengeance Must Foul, hits Netflix on this day as well. I was lucky enough to watch this one, me and the entire United Kingdom, because I'm pretty sure Wallace and Gromit are like their national heroes. But it's a good time. It has a lot of that charm that makes Wallace and Gromit feel very special. And if you're not familiar with Wallace and Gromit, 1, don't tell anybody from the UK that, and 2, watch a couple of their shorts. They're really great. The Wrong Trousers is life-changing cinema. January 10th is a big day for a lot of different reasons, one of them being the wide release of The Last Showgirl. I saw this back in TIFF, and essentially we follow a Las Vegas performer played by Pamela Anderson as she's preparing for the shutdown of a show that she's been performing at for decades. A lot of the conversation about this movie revolves around the performance of Pamela Anderson, which I can confirm is astounding. But there's not enough conversation about the supporting cast that surrounds her because they're doing things that I think are equally as great. Jamie Lee Curtis, Dave Bautista, Kiernan Shipka, Brenda Song. Remember when Brenda Song was in movies? It's good to have her back. Hard Truths, which is the newest Mike Leigh movie, screened at TIFF and then I missed it. Now it's that classic example of festival regret. But I've heard great things even though I don't know much about it. I know it's a drama about interpersonal relationships, which has me on board. I've heard that Marianne Jean-Baptiste is otherworldly in it, so I will be seated as soon as I can. Better Man. Look, I saw Better Man back at Fantastic Fest in September. It was a secret screening, which means I had no idea what I was signed up for. And I sat in that theater seat and someone came out and said, "You're gonna watch a movie about Robbie Williams, some alleged UK mega pop star." And for like half a second, I even considered maybe I'll just like leave and watch it another time. But I don't, I stay. And what's the first thing I see on the movie screen? A CGI chimpanzee, but no one in the movie is acknowledging he's a chimpanzee. He's not making chimpanzee noises. Okay, so I get it. They're literalizing a metaphor. So I stayed. I'm intrigued. 2 hours pass, the movie ends, and I am a convert to the church of Robbie Williams. True story. After that, Sydney, Claire, and I, my podcast co-host, went back to our Airbnb and we watched Robbie Williams performances on YouTube for the next 2 hours or so. So here's what I'll say. Give it a chance. It is a little unorthodox, but if you like musicals, I think it might be the best of 2024. And hey, maybe now the best of 2025. Den of Thieves, Pantera, the sequel to the somewhat successful Den of Thieves. But here's the thing, if you have any interest in Den of Thieves, Pantera, do not watch the trailer for this movie because it effectively spoils Den of Thieves, the first movie. How many times did I say Den of Thieves right now? The first Den of Thieves, essentially director Christian Gudegas, maybe not attempt at a modern day Heat, but definitely a strong homage to Heat, which is a dangerous game considering how good Heat is. Regardless, one of my mantras that I usually abide by is that there's no such thing as a bad heist movie, usually. So this movie picks up right after the first one. Will it be good? I am cautiously optimistic. On Thursday, January 16th, we have Unstoppable, not to be confused with the very incredible Tony Scott film Unstoppable that stars Denzel Washington and Chris Pine about a runaway train. That movie does kick a lot of ass though. Now, this Unstoppable is a true story biopic about Anthony Robles, who competes in a wrestling tournament despite being born with one leg. Every month it feels like we usually get one of these very standard biopics, which is not always a bad thing, but this January it's Unstoppable. January is also starting to become the month where Blumhouse releases a horror movie, which is both a good and kind of a bad thing. Last year it was the aforementioned Night Swim, which we know how that was. The year before was Megan, which I did enjoy, but this year it's Wolfman. And before you freak out that maybe we're on a bad trajectory with these Blumhouse releases in January, there's a big difference here. Wolfman is being helmed by Leigh Whannell. I think Invisible Man is one of the better, maybe one of the best horror movies of the 2020s. Upgrade may not have done well at the box office, but it's garnered a small cult following. I think Leigh Whannell has juice and will always have the juice. Plus, Christopher Abbott, Julia Garner, great cast. I am very excited for this. One of Them Days is a new buddy comedy starring Keke Palmer and SZA, and it's kind of like a Friday-esque plot where they have to collect rent last minute to avoid eviction. I think we are in dire need of more R-rated comedies, so I am all for this. Plus, Keke Palmer is an endlessly talented actress. Back in Action, which is a new Netflix movie with a very appropriate title since Cameron Diaz is back, everyone. Her first role in over a decade since retiring, which from the last Google search I did was because she wanted to focus on her own life, which, hey, you do you. A bit puzzling she's back for a Netflix movie, though, with Jamie Foxx. And that's not shade on Jamie Foxx either. He's a crazy talented actor as well. But considering Netflix's track record with these action original movies and their track record for January releases, I am a bit skeptical. But it will be a movie that your coworker will walk up to you one day and say, "Hey, Sally, I watched this crazy good movie yesterday." And you'll go, "Oh yeah, what movie was that, Todd?" And Todd will say, "Back in Action." Steven Soderbergh's Presence is a movie about a family who moves into a haunted house. The draw is the entire movie is shot from the perspective of the ghost. I saw it back in Sundance in January and I really loved it, but I need everyone to know that this is not a horror movie, at least not in the traditional sense. Don't buy into the headlines that say people are fainting while watching it, and especially don't buy into the trailer that's marketing it and propping it up as this terrifying, haunting experience. It's much more of a family drama with like a supernatural twist. Again, I love it to death. I talked to Lucy Liu on the press line. It was a life-changing experience, but I want people to shelve the expectations that this is a terrifying experience because it is not that kind of movie. Y'all need a pilot.
Y'all need a pilot.
The funniest thing about the trailer for Flight Risk, besides y'all need a pilot,
Y'all need a pilot.
is the twist within the trailer that Mark Wahlberg's character is severely balding. That is not a hitman. That is an incel on Twitter who complains gaming is too woke because Lara Croft doesn't show as much cleavage anymore. It looks painfully mediocre, and I will unfortunately be seated.
Y'all need a pilot.
You're Cordially Invited is a new direct-to-Prime comedy starring Reese Witherspoon and Will Ferrell. Your coworkers will again go bananas over this. The odds of it being good are probably very low. And then on January 31st, the last day of the month, we get three very different but very interesting movies. One of them is Dogman. I know very little about this Dogman. My preliminary Google search yields results that it appears to be based on a book written by the same guy who writes the Captain Underpants books. Further research, and by that research I mean the trailer I've seen in theaters like 5 or 6 times, seems to show the plot of a police officer and a dog who die in an accident, and so they decide to fuse the dog's head onto the human's body, a la like RoboCop or something. You know what? I'm in. Sign me up. Sure, why the hell not? Then there's Love Me, the sci-fi romance starring Kristen Stewart and Steve Yeun about a satellite that falls in love with a buoy because humanity is gone now. I saw this back in Sundance, and I don't want to rain on anybody's parade of excitement, but I did find it painfully average, maybe a little worse than that. Maybe I'll give it a second chance though, and maybe my opinion will change. And last but maybe most interesting is the horror movie Companion, which is directed by Drew Hancock and stars Sophie Thatcher, hot off Heretic, Jack Quaid, hot off being a really cool guy, and Lucas Gage, hot off Smile 2, and also being a really cool guy. There's not a lot to talk about here since the trailer is intentionally very ambiguous, which I prefer. It is produced by Zach Greger, who directed Barbarian, which I know people are hot and cold on, but it's a horror movie in January, and that's enough for me and a lot of people to get very excited. And that's it. That basically wraps up January. Now, of course, there's wide releases of limited releases like The Brutalist, and I'm sure after I post this, something new will probably get announced, but if I were to rank from what I know is coming out as the most exciting movies in January of 2025, it'll probably go something like this. 5 would be 7. Is that cheating because it's not a new movie? Maybe, but it's a Fincher movie re-released in IMAX. Of course, I'm buzzing. 4, let's go Den of Thieves Pantera. I am a heist guy to the core, so of course I'm excited. 3, Hard Truths. Why Mike Lee and Marianne Jean-Baptiste. 2, let's go Companion. The mystery of it has me intrigued. And number 1 has to be Leigh Whannell's Wolfman, for obvious Leigh Whannell reasons. And that's it. This is the end of the video. What are you supposed to do again? Like, comment, smash that subscribe button, hit the bell or something like that. I do plan on doing a lot more YouTube videos, so if you like this, let me know, because there will hopefully be a lot more.